Welcome. This session is powered by Global Talent Solution, supported by leaders of all nations, Global Society for Female Entrepreneurs, Helping Hand Foundation, Explore London, Global International Alliance, Ladies of All Nation Global Foundation, RM Infinite, International Youth Society and Dream Bigger. Today's host is Dr. Jaya Sajnani, and the guests are Dr. Ranjit Sagoo and Ella Ford Mthethwa. Enjoy the session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our third session of Mindful Entrepreneur Program. I am Dr. Jaya Sajnani. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, author, founder, and CEO of YG Travel, Helping Hand Foundation, Explore London, and co-founder of Global Talent Solution Hub. GTS. Yes, it is a non-profit organization and with a vision to create a future where talent knows no boundaries. We believe that every individual, regardless of their background or circumstances, should have access to the quality education, training, and the opportunity to excel their chosen field. We serve as a bridge between the education system and talent across the globe. We offer a study abroad program, cultural exchange program, student exchange program, and online speaker sessions where students and professionals can engage with the industry experts and from around the world. Yes, in the fast-paced world of entrepreneurships, mental health often takes a backseat. To champion the cause of mental health awareness, it is crucial to highlight the unique challenges faced by entrepreneurs and explore the strategies to foster resilience and well-beingness. Therefore, we have dedicated this program to educating and empowering those individuals with the tools and techniques not to only identify, but also to use them to overcome the feeling of being overwhelmed. Today's session is about building resilience. Before we start today's session, I would like to express my huge gratitude to our supporters. Without them, this session wouldn't be possible. They are Professor Caroline Makaka, founder of Loani, Leaders of All Nation International, Lady Dr. Robbie Motor, founder of GSFP, which is Global Society for Female Entrepreneurs, USA, Dr. Lenora Peterson, who's founder of GIA, Global International Alliances, USA, Dr. Randy Ward, founder of Dream Big Institute, again in USA, and Lily and Harry, who doesn't know them? They are the founder of Speakers Are Leaders in UK. So now, before we start this session, some logistic, please, I would like to request all of you to mute yourself until and unless we ask you to unmute, so that we can respect our speakers because it's their time to speak. Now, as you're all waiting for the moment, let's introduce our very first speaker, wonderful Ella Ford Matthew. Ella Ford Matthew is the founder of the Elegant Wellness Banquet and the Elegance Foundation. She is a renowned registered dietitian and accomplished business executive. She is currently a chair and a key initiative like BRICS, BRICS, Women's Business Alliances, and Leaders of All Nation International, impacting over 100 countries. For a decade, she has spreaded her national health promotion campaign, empowering communities, advocating for the resilience in the workplace. What a wonderful speaker. Welcome, Ella, on the stage.
Thank you so much for that exceptional welcome.
Yes, Ella, now your time is start. You can please share your insight and our audience would love to hear you.
Okay, good. So can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. All good? Okay. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share. And for that wonderful welcome. Yes, this is what I do on a daily basis. Also, in addition to being a registered dietitian, as you've mentioned, I'm also a healthy lifestyle coach. Because as you'll find, with the modern times in this fast-paced world, what we need really as a society and as entrepreneurs and people in the workplace, we need to review the way that we look at health. We now look at it holistically and not in isolation. So I work with families, and I also work with the individual in the various aspects, as you'll see in terms of the presentation. The topic for today is very, very relevant because it's talking about building resilience, which is really about the ability to bounce back even under the most dire of circumstances. And when we look at the problem statement today, what we see is that there's a high level of burnout, and burnout really is something that we now see as being something that's very chronic. It's defined as chronic workplace stress. And it's about energy depletion and exhaustion, and on a long term. And what one found is that sometimes what the people say is that people quit whilst that they're still at the job. So they show up at the job, but then once they step into the job, they show out. They aren't as productive as they should be. And one finds that there's a reduced professional efficacy. And what's really shocking when you look at statistics is that 25% of employees say that they experience burnout, and that's in 75% of in some countries. And what we believe as health professionals is that that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's not the complete truth. And the other issue is that when employees experience burnouts, they don't get the best. They don't give their best, and that can actually today be monetized and commercialized, because it's found that it minimizes their value. It minimizes what they can add in terms of revenue to companies. When we look at burnouts, it needs to be looked at, I believe, needs to be looked at positively. It's almost like a trigger. It's a sign that something has to change, and it's not failure. And that's why, in the heart of today's circumstances, where we find that there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of emotional damage, mental illnesses are on the high. We saw that with COVID as well. It's very important for us as health professionals and people that are involved in the health and wellness space to emphasize that it's not failure, because once you do that, you amplify the problem. And for those that are spiritually bound or spiritually grounded, it's very, very important for people to reach the core and to understand that even within spiritual belief, there's a reference to burnout, and being weary and experiencing burnout is not the end all and be all. There's always that, hope. And when we look at the impact of burnout, what we can see is that it has an impact on a person's physical health. So we see that there's a high increase of, lifestyle diseases such as heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases. People become more prone to being ill because of their weakened immune systems and their sleep disturbances. And you'll find that even when you look at people's social media activities, people are so much on social media, even during sleeping hours, because they suffer from insomnia. And that just has a ripple effect in terms of impacting their productivity. It also impacts mental health. So there's a lot of anxiety, depression, and just an overall decreased well-being because people are fatigued. Then socially, you find that it has a negative impact on relationships, both personal and professional. And then I spoke about productivity earlier, but you also find that there's increased absenteeism, and people sometimes give excuses that are not true in order not to be at work because of this burnout. And then when we talk about recovery and how one can actually build resilience, because resilience is about getting a very good grounding so that you're able to bounce back. We talk about burnout to balance in some countries, which is about, the holistic health, looking at your spiritual, physical, occupational, environmental, social, emotional, and intellectual wellness, because intellectual wellness is also about being inspired, keeping yourself inspired. I mean, at my age, I am continuously learning. So just committing to lifelong learning keeps you happy. And in other countries where harmony is understood, the way that I look at it, even in my practice, is through these 4 pillars of lifestyle medicine, which is via nutrition, looking at exercise, stress management, and social support. And when I look at them individually, as a dietitian, I always speak about just going back to basic, eating balanced meals. So eating 3 times a day, and ensuring that one has elements from the different food groups. These are practical. When we look at these elements, we're talking about these pillars, we go very practical. And sometimes people think it's too basic, but that's what we push for, going back to basics, removing unhealthy, toxic substances. So, for example, even in today's age, people are using these new sort of habits, such as vaping, especially the youth. And sometimes they're not even sure what it is that are in these liquids that they are vaping. So always emphasizing everything in moderation. So understanding what you're eating is very, very important. Not skipping breakfast. We understand, it's breaking the fast, and one has to sustain that so that one has all the energy and the nutrients that they need for the body to recover. Eating good quality carbs, protein, and fat. And when talking quality, we're talking about the content. So, for example, we know that in terms of drinks, there are different, water's the best. And then there's certain drinks that are just sugar, and you can live without them. So fizzy drinks that are high in sugar are not very healthy. Portion control is very important, because it doesn't help to think that a person's eating right, but they're eating large amounts of food. Then exercise, we know the benefits of exercise in terms of releasing the good hormones. So it improves the mood, helps with weight management, builds muscles and bones, increases energy. It's also shown to reduce chronic disease, also helps with your skin and your brain health and your memory, and improves sleep quality, especially if you strategically place your exercise. But it's also consistent. It's also builds character when you're consistent, because you have to commit. And I always talk about that. Then in terms of stress, when you're in the workplace or an entrepreneur, you need to have those boundaries. And always say, it's avoid taking work home. So you have to be productive during your working hours. Prioritize self-care. So doing things like yoga, exercising, and getting enough sleep, and learning to say no, which is not always easy. So don't overcommit even to tasks that you know that, because sometimes you talk about the disease to please. You want to please others. Don't say no. So rather not do that, and practice mindfulness and stress reduction techniques. So for some people, when you come to the practices, we come to our practices, we teach you breathing techniques, and we teach you tapping techniques, and prioritize your psychological safety. So when you know that you're at risk and you are highly stressed, it's okay to remove yourself. It's not quitting. Remove yourself from that environment, and then protect yourself. Then social support. I always say, you go for people who love more, people who are going to build you, people who are going to make you stronger. So maximizers, people who are going to maximize and amplify who you are, the best side of you. So it's okay to detox and remove the people that you know aren't good for you. So building a strong spiritual grounding. A lot of people are either Christian or they practice different denominations. So very important to get that grounding right, because what it is that is at your core, and what it is that you can call upon when you really, really are down in the dumps. And some people are thinking of suicide and all sorts of, negative thoughts. It's okay to seek support, getting mentors, and having a tribe around you, family and colleagues that you trust. It's okay to get those and to stick to those. Then when you're an entrepreneur yourself, it's important to create that positive work environment, because you also don't want to be a contributor to burnout and a contributor to reducing a person's resilience. So it must be an environment that is motivating, that encourages open communication and feedback, that promotes work-life balances, that doesn't frown upon people who don't answer, WhatsApps and emails late at night. It's focusing on delivery and not just controlling people's time. Then it must be an environment that is professional and promotes growth, and it's very supportive, very inclusive. When I talk about inclusive, so in terms of women, in terms of race groups, and then recognizes and rewards achievements. And then as I come to the end, my story itself is also a story of encouragement, because I also come from a place that say when you've walked a certain road, it's very easy to share. So I've also been on a journey where I've been sort of down in the dumps myself, really, and have built myself up to a point where I started a program that is called The Body is a Temple, and which I've rolled out nationally, and I speak about globally. So I've been physically doing grassroots, activations in communities, both rural and urban communities, and with families. And I've even been to a festival where I've seen over 40,000 people attending those festivals. So my life story is also a journey of hope. And then finally, I've also even written about a book about it called Perfect Landing, Wrong Airports, which is a situation sometimes that we find ourselves in, where we find ourselves in an environment which is not ideal. You land in an environment that is not fertile for you to grow, to build resilience. And it's up to you to find that environment so that you can be at the right airport and thrive. And the book is available on Amazon. So in conclusion, when it comes to building resilience, it's very important for us, for us as individuals, to be able to move from that place of burnout, that place of survival, to a place where we can actually thrive and grow, but further to go to be in a place where we can even be more creative, where we strive and we are trailblazers. And it's possible, as I said, when one looks at my life as well. So thank you very, very much. Thank you very much for the platform. I hope you're able to learn something from today, from this presentation today. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts and just answering your questions.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Ella. Wow, that was a wonderful learning. So if you guys haven't taken the notes, I have taken lots of notes. And let me just recap what Ella has explained us. That's the building resilience, the roots of it is a burnout. So how do we stop making ourselves burn out? First of all, find out the issues and then work on your body. I loved it when she said it, the program called Body is the Temple. So this is the mechanism, that is the body. And if it is not working perfectly, we need to find out. And the tools, what she has given is start with what we consume, what we eat. Because end of the day, what you eat, you become. And that is a very well-known saying. So what you eat, that you become. So try and choose healthy options instead of going for the burgers or chips or something, and avoid toxic substances as well. Yes, and of course, exercise. Don't forget. Yes, you talk about your minerals, vitamins, but your muscles needs to work out as well, and that's where exercise will comes up. And then we talk about yoga, and that's the spirit, mind, easiness, peace will come in. So make sure you keep some time aside for yourself, to give that time to just be yourself and then make peace within. But what I loved it, the book, I am going to definitely buy that book from Amazon. Perfect Landing, Wrong Airports. So make sure you surround with the right people, because no matter how much good you do within, But if your environment is not right, somewhere you will be dragged in that negative energy within you. So when fantastic. Thank you so much, Ala Matthew. That's wonderful. Now it is time for our wonderful another speaker. And he is NHS, which is National Health Services General Practitioner. So let's call upon Dr. Ranjit Sagoo. Let me tell you a few things about Dr. Ranjit. Dr. Ranjit Sagoo is an NHS GP and transformation health and well-being coach with MBCHB, MRCGP, and certification in lifestyle medicine and NLP. My God, I need to learn what are these abbreviation for. I'm sure Dr. Ranjit will tell us. And he is a blend medical expert with holistic lifestyle coaching to support professionals navigating mental health challenges. Dr. Sagoo empowers individuals to achieve balance across mind, body, and spirit. He is also the co-founder of the Mindful Mixtape podcast, where he explored the life symphony, advocating for physical, mental, and emotional growth through storytelling and humor. What a wonderful way of learning. Let's welcome Dr. Ranjit Sagoo.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ranjit. Please do enlighten us. What was that abbreviation? I'm sure people can do the Google and find out, but that would be nice to hear from you as well.
Yeah, so as you say, I'm a medical doctor here in the UK, and then a transformational lifestyle medicine coach. So very holistic sort of coaching around well-being and nutrition, and kind of incorporating in that clinical hypnotherapy as well, which helps people to kind of break limiting beliefs, go beyond and really transform their lives.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ranjit. Now, our audience is eager to learn from you and your experience, your knowledge. Please share some insight on the building resilience.
Okay, brilliant. Just going to share my presentation. Okay, so yeah, I mean, brilliant talk there by Dr. Ella, and there's a lot of crossover in some of the things that we believe in there. I was going to take more of a sort of view up from the mindset side of things. How do we build resilience for ourselves, within our teams and organizations, so that we can be successful and thrive amongst all the sort of challenges and the stresses that come with being an entrepreneur? Okay, I really like this kind of analogy where entrepreneurship is seen as being on a roller coaster ride, and even nicer than that is actually the association of resilience being your seatbelt. So it kind of gives you this feeling that you've got a seatbelt on. It's kind of giving you this sort of a little bit of control, a little bit of security, no matter what what twists and turns are coming your way. You've still got this sort of control that helps you kind of navigate through kind of the difficulty. So I really like that analogy. So what are we looking at today? We're going to look at what is resilience. How do we develop resilience for ourselves? How do we develop resilience within our teams and organizations, and where emotional intelligence is really important for our development of resilience. So what is resilience? Like we just said there, kind of using that analogy of entrepreneurship being like a roller coaster and that kind of that safety belt. Resilience is that kind of, it does give you that feeling of control, being able to navigate situations and difficulties with more kind of resources, more sort of ability and capacity. The definition is the ability to adapt and recover from adversity. And it kind of is, it is that in itself. It's being able to kind of respond to the challenges in a way where you're not being overwhelmed and you're not being so you're not overreacting to situations. And that's a good question. Does being an entrepreneur come with adversity? Entrepreneurs will probably be able to answer that question quite easily, that it probably does feel a little bit like this, where you're on a roller coaster, there's loads of ups and downs, There's loads of twists and turns, and these things come on a daily basis. Everyone can probably resonate with that kind of feeling. And resilience is kind of how do we kind of navigate this in a better way, so that we're kind of sort of approaching things in a kind of a more smoother way. How do we create that kind of resilience and that kind of capacity within ourselves to not overreact and not become overwhelmed? So it's about being able to smooth out your reactions so that we can face these challenges in a way where we're not being thrown off guard. We're more able to kind of approach things in a more kind of pragmatic and more kind of logical way, so that our reactions don't appear like this, where we become completely overwhelmed, and that it's kind of a more smoother and calmer reaction, and that we can take. So how do we develop resilience for ourselves? I really like this quote about adversity. It says, your reaction to adversity is not the adversity itself. Sorry, your reaction to adversity it's your reaction to adversity, not adversity itself, that determines how your life story will develop. What this means is that it's not the event that occurs, but it's how we perceive that event. It's how we interpret the meaning of that event that's going to decide how we think about it, how we feel about it, how we're going to act and react to the situation. And each of us is always going to take a different meaning from the situation. Each of us is going to find, a different meaning for it. And that's going to determine then how we're going to react. So a really good example of this is just from kind of a story is to say, for example, you've got a production company and it's got two managers in the company, and all of a sudden one day your supplier can't suddenly supply a product that's important for your development line. Manager one, their reaction is, this is completely catastrophic. Our production's going to stop. We're not going to be able to meet our customer demand. We're not going to, it's going to affect our finances and income. Whereas you have manager two who feels, okay, this is not so bad. We still have enough of a buffer. We've got some product enough to go out for our customers. So we've got a bit of a buffer for a few days, a few weeks. We've got other suppliers we can talk to kind of restart that. So it's the same situation, but two different interpretations. And you've got the first interpretation where it's kind of more of a negative, very pessimistic, very kind of narrow kind of mindset. Whereas you've got the second interpretation, which is more of an open, positive mindset, kind of more of someone who's ready to kind of approach challenges, somebody who's actually more resilient, and they've kind of built in that resilience into themselves. So how do we develop that resilience? How do we develop ourselves so that we're more like the second manager in the situation? And it's exactly that. It's about the mindset, how we shift from a very negative, kind of pessimistic, kind of narrow, closed mindset to this kind of more open, positive mindset, where we can view challenges as an opportunity to learn. And a lot of that is about becoming present. That's kind of the first thing, is actually being present in the situation. Often when something happens, we either look to the past and we're trying to work out what happened, or we're looking to the future and trying to see the significance of what's happening. But rather we should be focusing on the present, looking at the situation, accepting the situation, and then we can kind of take ourselves out of the situation, take the emotion out, and be able to look at things very logically and pragmatically and say, okay, now we see what the problem is. We can break this down into several smaller problems, smaller goals that we can tackle. Because if we're looking at a problem that's huge and big, it becomes overwhelming and we can't deal with the whole thing. So it's really important to be able to break things down into smaller, more manageable steps. But kind of fundamentally, in terms of developing personal resilience, it's very similar to what Dr. Ella was saying there. It's about looking after ourselves holistically. It's not just about us in the workplace. We have to look after ourselves as a whole. There has to be this whole balance and harmony to our lives. So like Dr. Ella said, it's prioritizing our nutrition, our physical well-being, our sleep and recovery and restoration, our relationships with other people, our friends and family. All of that has to be really, really well looked after and nurtured, because if there are stresses in those areas, if there's stresses in our family life, if there's stresses, if we're not able to be physically active and become physically fit, all of that kind of diminishes your ability and your capacity to deal with any other stresses. So if a new work stress comes about, your ability to deal with that is truly limited. And part of that is building a good support network. So a good support network at home, but even in the workplace, having a good support network of people like mentors and peers and advisors, people that you can turn to when there are difficulties and challenges, that can give you advice and support you so that you're not feeling alone. That's really, really important for resilience. What happens when there are setbacks? Like we were just saying there, its presence is a really, really important thing. So it's being able to kind of accept and acknowledge exactly what's going on now, not worrying about what's happened or the problems that have started and things like that, and not worrying about what the kind of the consequences of all of this is now or later, until we can kind of accept, all right, this is a situation. And then once we've accepted the situation, especially without blame, that's really important. Once we start blaming ourselves for the situation, then we start to become very negative. We start to become very negative about ourselves, and that kind of closes your mindset. When you're starting to become very negative and pessimistic, it affects your own confidence, it affects your self-esteem, so that you're not able to kind of affect the situation as best as you can. Once we've acknowledged, then we can assess the situation properly. We can identify what steps we need to take and create a logical action plan. And once we've got a plan, once we can see the logical progression of the plan, we can move forwards with that. And we can maintain that kind of persistence in pursuing that, because we can hold ourselves accountable to it. And also, because of what we've learned, it's really important that we also build in some flexibility into that plan as well, so that we can pivot where we need to, where things might require it. Okay, in terms of our organisation, it's really important to kind of build this kind of culture of resilience within the whole organisation or your team. This kind of building a kind of supportive and flexible work environment where everybody feels heard, where everybody feels like they have a voice. Everybody's kind of contribution is just as important as others, because then there's this whole work ethic of everybody's working towards the same common goals and being really supported. And we can do that through things like training programs, so where everybody feels not only confident in that their skills are consistently being improved upon, but there's people feel supported in the sense that their training and their growth is important as well. Other things like having resources such as kind of well-being support, counselling, mentoring, and things like that, and encouraging innovation. We all like to excel. We all like to show creativity, and we all like to, show what we can do. So it'll be great to kind of have that really supportive environment where people are encouraged to show their creativity in a space where they feel safe and supported to do so and not criticised. And then emotional intelligence, and this is really, really key as well. So emotional intelligence is the ability to recognise, understand and manage our own emotions, and then the emotions of others. So this comes back to kind of having that mindfulness and presence. So being kind of mindful and present in the situation. Once we can understand what's happening to us at the moment, what we're feeling at the moment, then we can understand, okay, I'm feeling like this, and it's because these things are happening right now. Once we can understand what's happening and how that's linked to our feelings, then we can kind of regulate ourselves better, because we can say, all right, I know what we can do about these things, and that helps to kind of get control over your emotions better. And then, like we said earlier, if you can take the emotion out of the situation, you can approach the situation in a more pragmatic way, in a more logical way. And it also helps you when you feel more regulated. You can start to help and support other people better, because you can see and kind of empathize with their emotions and help support them. And then everybody feels more motivated because people feel they're being heard, they're being listened to, their emotions are being supported. And overall, that leads to making better decisions. Your leadership abilities are more enhanced, and you're handling the stress of the situation much, much better. So a few practical tips to take away. Like we said, kind of throughout this, mindfulness and being present in the situation is really important. At the time when things are going wrong, it's really important not to think about what happened before, not to think about what's kind of going on in the future. And a really important part of that actually is having an open, non-blame culture. So when we're trying to analyze situations, is having kind of an open forum where people could talk freely, and people aren't going to be criticized or aren't going to have the finger pointed at them. Having a very open culture where people can talk and kind of share their feelings. And other ways to be mindful is journaling, reflecting, having regular feedback from the whole team, which is really important. And we said fundamentally, it's looking after yourself as a whole, creating a kind of balance and harmony throughout your whole mind, body, and spirit. So it's not just your kind of well-being in your workplace, it's your complete well-being in your whole life, because that when we can nurture that, we build that extra capacity for dealing with adverse situations. And we said, obviously, cultivating the right culture in the workplace, so having a supportive workplace where everybody feels they're heard and they're all kind of working in the same direction. And ways of doing this is having supportive sort of learning opportunities where everybody feels like they're growing and their abilities are being nurtured. Okay, and I just wanted to leave you with this. It's what we've kind of talked about, because it's not the outside event that's important. It's how we interpret the events, and it's our mindset. And if we can help to start to shift our mindset to a more positive, kind of growth-oriented mindset, we can build our resilience much better. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Ranjit. This was wonderful session. And I love your analogy, the way you mentioned it, that entrepreneurship is actually a roller coaster. And me being a serial entrepreneur, trust me, every day, every hour of my life, I feel overwhelming, ups and downs are coming. And yes, seat belt is very important. People who drive, they know the seat belt is so safety measure. Everyone, even the passenger, needs to wear it. So when you are going through roller coaster, the analogy is perfect. That seat belt, which is your building resilience, your resilience is your seat belt, and work on it. That was fantastic. The next thing I learned from you is basically, I remember and on my one of the MBA class, my tutor also here in UK University, they did mention it that as well. And I just want to remind audience that one episode that when you are in the midst of so many things, just think one time that what if you are in the middle of ocean and you are in the boat all alone and your boat is sinking? Yeah? How do you stop this? And the simple answer was stop imagining, stop thinking, because this is always on our head, right? It's not a reality. So yes, Dr. Ranjit, as you mentioned it very well, that be mindful, be present. Don't think about the consequences. Don't think about the future, what will bring it. And like in our Hindu and our culture as well, people mentioned this many times, that do your karma, do your work. Don't worry about what will result comes in, because if your intention and your work, dedication, the focus is right, you don't need to worry about. But how do we put it forward that when, as an entrepreneur, the practical tips, which Dr. Ranjit has mentioned it, which was very well, in the organization, create an atmosphere where you feel valued, you feel appreciated. And I can see on our social media as well, one of our viewer, Darlene, as well mentioned that yes, everyone feel welcome, valued, appreciated is most amazing feelings. And that kicks out your creativity because you feel that you are a part of this mission, part of this organization, part of the one place where we all heading together. And yes, again, Dr. Ranjit has echo, food, exercise, support system wherever you go, with your family, with your organization as well. Being an entrepreneur, it is our responsibility that our staff members have been supported. No blame games, no blame. Whatever happened. Let's crack on, break it in the small bites and find out how do we fix it. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ranjit, Dr. Ella. It was fantastic to learn from you guys. Now we have a few questions. I'm going to ask you one question and the floor will be open to both of you. And even if Babala wants like to jump in, please do answer. We would love to hear your views. So our first question from the audience is, how can entrepreneurs develop resilience and bounce back from setback effectively? So as you know, that in the entrepreneur journey, there are so many ups and downs happens. How can we suddenly just change it and build that resilience, which will change the scenario and say, it's okay. As like Dr. Ranjit has given us case study, manager 2, but reaching that stage. Dr. Ranjit, would you like to start with that as you were talking about that as well?
Yeah, really good question, and that's the important thing. It's how do you get from that? How do you get to that kind of mindset? Which is, it can be difficult, and obviously it does take time to build. And I always go back to the first important step is obviously being mindful. Is being present, like you said yourself, there's no point worrying about the past, there's no point worrying about the future. All of those questions are in our mind. It's actually trying to work out, okay, what is actually going on now, and how am I feeling about it? And then being able to start to separate the emotion, because when we're too emotionally involved, it clouds our judgment. We can't focus, and that's where sometimes the negativity comes into it, and we can't think very logically or deal with the situation pragmatically. So I think that's an important place to start. So when we can do that, then we can develop a more kind of logical way of dealing with the situation. And like we said as well, is try, you might have a kind of an overarching view of the problem, but then try to break that down into smaller steps, because the big picture can be overwhelming sometimes. So if we can break it down into small things, okay, these are the things I need to focus on now. There's other things that can wait. So it's, so that's why, these small few things that I can work on now don't feel so overwhelming to me. And once I start doing those, you start to build motivation, because, once you see that you're on the path to getting to your goal, then that's what kind of develops, that motivates you and kind of encourages you to carry on.
Wow, that's fantastic. Ella, would you like to please add some more?
Yes, I couldn't have said it any better, Dr. Ranj. I mean, I think even in your presentation, the way that you set your presentation up is really about that. It's about how, individuals can bounce back. And I love the analogies because it's really memorable. Mm-hmm. I also love the fact that, you spoke around the importance of mindset, because, we sometimes throw around these terms where we say that the mind is the CEO of the complete body, because you can really work yourself into a state of paralysis just with your thoughts. So becoming overwhelmed and overwhelmed and engulfed by the problem is not the way to go. And as you said, it requires someone it requires you to be present. So it means, what that basically means is that you have to be intentional when you deal with your challenges. Unfortunately, life is not smooth. We need to, as individuals and human beings, accept the fact that in life there will be setbacks. And what's clear, even based on Dr. Ranjit's presentation, is how we respond as individuals. And there's a saying that says that it's important for one to deal with your issues in the way, in a similar way that you would deal with eating an elephant. They say you should eat an elephant one bite size at a time. So it basically means that you look at this huge problem, but you focus on the small, on taking away the smaller bits, one bit at a time, and eventually the whole elephant will be consumed. And while you are consuming those issues one bite size at a time, you'll be rewarding yourself and acknowledging that the fact that you are seeing progress. Because when you do that, there's definitely a progress. Action.
Wow.
Being action oriented, it's very important to act, and to do so immediately before you come into that state of paralysis that I spoke about. So very important.
That's very fantastic. Ella, I must tell you, eating anything is not a problem for me, whether I see the big thing or small thing. But that was fantastic analogy, and I agree with you. The only issue with me being entrepreneur, when I see this, it takes a practice, a time, it over the again and again and again I go through. If I see myself 5 years before, when if I would have incurred the same setbacks what today, I could have broken down. But now the resilience has helped me every period of time. One new thing I try, and that helps, which is fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Ranjit and Ala. Now, this actually leads to another question. So we talked about that, how we can build the resilience. Now, as an organization, as an entrepreneur, you know that there are so many people working with us, and ultimately it's our responsibility that they feel valued, appreciated, but same time, they also build the resilience. So our next question is, how do the organizations promote employee resilience, and what is the leader's role in promoting that?
Okay, so the leadership, firstly, this question can be answered twofold. The first point of call is that as employees need to take responsibility and understand that the role of building resilience primarily is self-driven. So Dr. Ranj and I spoke a lot about what it is that individuals can do, not only within the workplace, but individuals can do at home. There's a lot that they need to do at home in order to build resilience. So the going in position in the workplace is much better when you do the work yourself first. Then secondly, organizations, I believe, and leaders have a very important role to play, because sometimes, knowingly or unknowingly, leaders can play a very, very a big role in terms of driving, employees to this burnout stage, in terms of driving employees into emotional breakdown. And unfortunately, like I was saying, Dr. Ranj, some leaders don't know. They aren't aware that that's what they are doing. So these open conversations, this environment of open discussion, open dialogue, engagement around issues is very, very important. Liz Wiseman speaks about two types of leaders, and organizations need to identify what type of leaders they have. They have leaders who are called diminishers, and they have leaders who are called multipliers. The diminishers are those leaders who, for some reason or another, are not able to bring out the best in employees. Sometimes, they go all the way out and they recruit the best, the best in the country, best IT people, the best in terms of their what they've studied. So, and they brought into their organization for their expertise. But once they're inside, they are underutilized. Sometimes because the leader themselves is someone with a low self-confidence, and they want to show that they are good at what they do, and they don't give employees an opportunity to thrive and to showcase their expertise. And what happens if you're not being used and valued? The organization loses because you're not getting these new ideas. But
Wow.
the other thing is that the employee also becomes frustrated, they become exhausted, and then they check out when they walk into the building, and you don't get the best. So in summary, identify your diminishers, identify your maximizers, and try to close the gap between those in terms of leaders.
That's so true. Thank you so much, Ella. Wow, that is wonderful. Dr. Ranjit, would you like to add something on that, please?
Yeah, no, that was a brilliant explanation. I think the only thing to add to that is, as a leader, we have to learn to become kind of responsive to our employees and our team. So it's about becoming kind of more open to the workplace. So like we said, having an open conversation, but that only comes when, like we said about emotional intelligence, when we become more emotionally intelligent ourselves, then we can kind of reflect back on our team.
Wow, that's right on, Dr. Ranjit. That is our third question, and I am going to throw to you now straight away because you have already touched this point. So our third question from the audience is, how does emotional intelligence enhance personal resilience, and how can this be improved?
Yeah, so again, yeah, really good question. It's obviously, once we, like I said, it comes back to, and I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself, it's kind of becoming present and mindful. It's all about, looking into yourself first and becoming aware of your emotions and your feelings, because a lot of the time we're so oblivious to what we're feeling and then we're just acting on emotion and just responding to what's happening. So once we become aware of kind of our own emotions and what's going, that's what's going to help us to then be able to regulate it. Because like we said, when you can kind of realize what you're feeling, how you're feeling, and then you can actually look at the situation and say, actually, I'm feeling this way because this has happened. Then you can almost park that emotion and say, okay, in order to get rid of that emotion, these are the things I have to fix. So it just kind of helps you to kind of put a more kind of logical approach to it, and kind of when you can take the emotion out of it, then you feel confident at dealing with the situation.
Wow, that's wonderful. Ella, would you like to add anything on it?
Yes, I see Babala there. Maybe she'll also add. But it's very much, very much about doing a very, very thorough introspection, which requires that the individual be able to also receive feedback. Sometimes it's not very easy. Like when my daughter says some things to me, Mom, you've done this. It's not very easy to accept feedback because and that puts you in a very honest place. It puts you in a good place, because then what you can do is what Dr. Ranjit was referring to, which is about root cause analysis. So you're looking at the absolute root cause, because sometimes of your feelings, because sometimes the root cause and what you discover is actually becomes a bit of a surprise. And it's and as coaches, what we do is we help you to look at it in a very sort of clear, methodical way, so that you are able to do the ticking and deal with it. And I'm actually doing a PhD on lifestyle medicine at the moment, and that's exactly what it's all about, doing that root cause analysis.
Wow, that is really, really good. And sometimes I feel that why we are not fully aware that it's okay to be set back. It's okay even if we are not having that enough resilience to come back. And we are allowed to take the support, because people see that having to take the mental support, that means you are mentally disabled. No, that is not the truth, right? Dr. Ranjit, you're a GP. I'm sure you can put some light on it, that if my arm is hurting, I can go to physicians. but some part of my brain is hurting. Why I can't go to the psychiatrist or some people who can
Yeah,
help
sure.
me?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of stigma, isn't there? And
Yeah.
don't like showing the vulnerability from that point of view. Everybody wants to look as though they have everything under control. But it's really important for people to know that it's okay to be open and talk about their problems, and there's support out there. And that's what actually the podcast that I do is about. It's about starting to have these open conversations.
Wow.
Everybody is probably going through these things, but not wanting to talk about them. So that's why we wanted to put it on an open forum, so to encourage people
Yeah.
talking.
And I hope that there's also an emphasis around men and perceptions around mental health, because in certain societies, like in a lot of the African countries, there's this term that says men don't cry, and it's not about tears per se, but it's about showing emotion and being vulnerable. So I'll be following your podcast and hoping that those topics, that area is covered.
And it's very similar in the
Dr.
Asian
Ranjit, you want to mention when and where people can see your podcast or hear that?
Okay. Oh yeah. So the Mindful Mixtape podcast it's on YouTube, but it's also on like Google and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There's first series on there at the moment, and we're in the process of recording our next series.
Oh,
wow, that's fantastic. So I hope you all have heard about this. We have a 350 live viewers, and they must be hearing this, that we need to do two things I have taken away from this episode, which I am going to do. Go on Amazon, order Perfect Landing for the Wrong Destination. And the second is the YouTube channel for the podcast. And I want to hear the first series, which is already there. Why Not Mindful Mixtaper, right? This is the name, Dr. Ranjit?
Yeah, the Mindful Mixtape podcast. Yeah.
Mixtaper. Yes, and I am going to hear that out, because end of the day, as an individual, as a part of the society, community, part of this nation and the world, we carry the responsibility on our shoulder, as well as an entrepreneur, business mindset people as well, that we do need to talk about this. Mental health is as important as anything happens to your body. Do not ignore it. If you're going to ignore it, it's going to build up, build up, build up, and one day it's going to blast. Why would you reach to the boiling point? Why cannot fix it now? And fixing does not mean that something is wrong within you. It's just the human psychology. It's the body, the way body has the ups and downs, some hormonal issues, but mental as well needs some peace. And the society with the AI world nowadays, I find very, very difficult to focus. I'm not sure how you guys are doing it, but for me, I have to literally switch off my phone. And on the last episode, one of the speaker did mention it, that 1 hour digital detox. And I am practicing that every day, 1 hour, my phone, my technology, everything away. And that works well. So thank you so much. We have only 3 minutes. So if Ella and Dr. Ranjit, would you like to summarize in 1-2 lines something, or you want to put it out some message to our audience as well? Thank you.
No, so for me, I just want to say, very broadly that the body is the temple, our temple, the temple of the Lord for those who believe in Christianity. And really, it's our role to look after it so that we can not only survive, we go to a state of thriving, and striving. And we need to do that for our future generations as well. It's okay not to be okay, because it presents an opportunity for you and others around you to help you to become the best version of yourself. Thank you very much.
Great. Dr. Ranjit?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of following on from that, I say the first place is look after yourself. Be kind and compassionate with yourself. We can do that for other people, but we often are too hard on ourselves. And that's where resilience starts, when we approach ourselves in that holistic manner, having that, trying to achieve that kind of balance and harmony, but by being kind and compassionate to yourself.
Great, thank you. We have a lovely another speaker as well. Bapalba, would you like to please add something on the summary, please?
Thank you so much. I will just extract something from my favorite book by Dr. Ella, Perfect Landing, Wrong Airport. Keys to support ourselves when we feel like we cannot cope. She's saying we need to have passion for our craft, because when you are passionate, that will drive you even in the most challenging times. And then she also says leverage key relationships. Surround yourselves with people who will support you. That is what has been great for me. When I was reading her book, it was a great lesson to remind myself that we must surround ourselves with people who are a support system so that we don't feel alone. And sometimes in coping, we normally want to be positive. Everybody will say be positive, and we ignore the heart, like the emotions. Just acknowledge that you are not feeling okay, and take time to listen to your body, and just that on its own. Like now I'm touching my heart. I'm having I call these hugs. I give myself a nice hug, and and that just helped me to be aware of where I'm at, and I'll feel grounded, and then everything else, then the mind kind of follows. I know most of the time we say, I know Dr. Red, maybe the medically is like the mind is where everything is controlled, but I start here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Babawa. I just would like to remind everyone, whoever is watching us live, this was a wonderful session. If you have missed out anything, please go on our YouTube channel, Global Talent Solution Hub, and you will see this recorded session over there as well. So don't forget to attend our next session, which is next week, Thursday, 13th of June, same time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. UK time. And we are going to talk about work-life balance. Yes, if you are an entrepreneur, individual working, or even just relaxing on a holiday, this is very important, how to balance your life. As we already touched on the emotional intelligence, and the part of this is once your life is balanced, automatically that will affect your emotional intelligence as well, and you will throw energy of the positivity, and people want to connect with you. So for that reason, please don't forget to attend your next session. Till that, everyone, please take care of themselves and have a lovely rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to catch our next session live on 13th June 2024.